Okay, so this is something I want to talk about for a few weeks now, which is this ban on the burkini. It started off in July. The Mayor of Cannes decided to ban burkinis on the beaches that are under his authority. And then the courts got involved. They overturned the ban, but then other mayors in other resorts in France got involved. They made similar bans, even though the court said you can't really do this. And then reports were coming through of where these bans were being imposed. And so this story's rumbled on, and it's still rumbling on by all accounts in France. Now, if you're not aware of what we're talking about with the burkini, I suppose what it boils down to is it's a Muslim woman's kind of full body clothing for wearing down the beach. So it's the equivalent of wearing all your clothes down the beach and then going for a swim in the sea in all your clothes. And if that ridicules it a little bit, if that makes it sound a little bit absurd and moronic, I've got to say, going down a boiling hot beach wearing all your clothes and going for a swim wearing all your clothes, from my perspective, is a little bit absurd and moronic. But of course they are doing it for religious reasons, and this is where the debate gets clouded, and where the perspective that you tend to have in France and the UK tends to divide here, as it did a few years back, where the French imposed legally enshrined under certain circumstances bans on religious headdress, be it the hijab, which is effectively a headscarf, or then going to things such as, well, let's just go through. The most strict of the two, of course, is the burqa, which is the equivalent of going out wearing a cloth body bag, right? It's like a living person wearing a body bag, as far as I'm concerned. There is a slight sop made to the wearer in that there's a kind of grill, so I suppose you can just make out a few lights and shapes and colours out there. But nothing more than that. And then there is, of course, the niqab, which is the body bag, but with a slit drawn in it. Luxury that is, that you can actually get to see a little bit of the world through a slit. And then you go all the way down. There are some other stages that you don't see so much in the way. I've never seen a burqa in the West, to be honest. I've seen niqabs and, of course, hijabs. But you don't see many of the others in the West, or not that I would have recognised them. So these are the different ones that you have, but they banned them in France under certain circumstances. Now, I maybe want to talk about that first before I move on to the burkini, because that's a more recent thing. But there are some parallels you can draw between the two. Now, before I say how I feel about these kind of headwear, particularly, I suppose, the niqab, where it's just the slit for the eyes, I think the first thing I've got to say is that there's a lot of hypocrisy I found with the sort of British response to this, which was a very sniffy response, as if the French are very discriminatory here in the way that they're carrying out. And we'd never do those kinds of things. We're much more sensitive of people's culture. And let me just explain something. We speak with a double tongue in the United Kingdom when we talk about culture, because we talk about respecting people's culture, but it's all a load of shit. The only culture that we're really interested in respecting is when religion is involved. So when you hear about respecting people's culture, what it means is respecting people's religious culture. If your culture does not involve religion, then quite honestly, people couldn't give a stuff about it, right? So that's what it means by culture. And that's the first level of the hypocrisy that's tied into all of this. But what made me smile with regard to the response that we had in Britain with regard to what was going on in France there was the level of hypocrisy, because I think that we do exactly the same thing that France does, but we do it the other way round and don't actually seem to be aware that we're doing it. So whereas the French perspective, they're very, very sensitive about they value their secularism to such a degree that, if anything, it causes them to perhaps persecute or to be harder on people who are religious or are outwardly religious. We tend to be the other way round and grant people rights with regard to their religion where we wouldn't do otherwise. Even if it's a cultural artifact, if religion isn't involved, we don't grant them the same rights. And I think the perfect example of this, a lovely example of this, because it's so closely closely related. If I go into my local supermarket, there is a sign, and I've seen similar signs in other supermarkets and shopping centres. It's not a one-off, that says that if you are a motorcyclist and you wish to enter the store, you've got to remove, they demand that you remove your helmet. If you wear a hoodie and you have your hood up, they're demanding that you lower your hood before you enter their supermarket. Bear in mind that wearing hoodies, especially amongst younger people, has become a strong cultural phenomena over the past 10 years. So again, we're talking about culture here. The wearing of hoodies is a cultural phenomena. But the supermarket couldn't give a damn about that. And if you asked the supermarket, why are you asking motorcyclists to remove their helmet? Why are you asking the hoodie wearers to remove their hoodies? They would give you some very strong and persuasive reasons, some very reasonable reasons why they want those things to take place. But once religion gets involved, those things just melt away. Religion trumps those reasons each and every time. No supermarket or shopping centre in the United Kingdom would dare make the same demands on anybody who was covering their hair, covering their head, covering their face for religious reasons. Apparently, all those decent and sensible reasons they had for asking you to uncover their face just don't apply to people if they're doing those things for religious reasons. The safety of other shoppers suddenly doesn't matter. Being able to see you so that you can be picked up on CCTV in case you were to steal something, that all of a sudden doesn't matter anymore because you're covering your head for religious reasons. And bear in mind, for motorcyclists, sometimes it's a bit of a pain in the arse having to carry your motorcycle helmet round all the time. And every motorcyclist in the UK has to wear, it's part of the law, has to wear a motorcycle helmet, unless you're a Sikh man, which is a second irony with regard to all of this. If you want to know why you have to wear a motorcycle helmet in the UK, there are some very, very good reasons as to why we demand people wear motorcycle helmets. But miraculously, if you're a Sikh man, none of those reasons apply, apparently. Why? Because Sikh men wear turbans, and they wear those turbans for religious reasons. So if a Sikh man comes off his bike and stoves his head in on the curb or gets run over by a lorry going in the other direction, well, apparently that isn't a problem because he's wearing his turban for religious reasons. So again, we have this kind of difference, this discriminatory treatment between people doing things for cultural religious reasons and people doing them, again, often for cultural reasons, but for non-religious cultural reasons. And that seems to get a free pass within the UK, but I think that's just as bad as what happens in France. Now, with regard to how I feel about people wearing niqabs and hijabs and the like, as I say, I've never seen anybody wearing a burqa. With hijabs, it doesn't really impact on me. If I see somebody with an hijab where they're just covering their hair, really that doesn't impact on me. Possibly if I was in a train carriage filled with women who were wearing hijabs, it might slightly disconcert me. It might make me feel a little bit uncomfy, not because of any prejudice on my part, but simply because I know that I am in a carriage filled with people whose outlook, whose perspective on the universe and how it works is so radically different from my own that I can't figure out how their brains work. And that is a little bit disconcerting. But it is no more or less disconcerting than if I was to know that I was in a carriage filled with white, middle-aged male atheists who were all conspiracy theorists, right? But the difference is that white, middle-aged atheist conspiracy theorists don't wear a great big badge saying I'm some kind of lunatic fucking conspiracy theorist. So I wouldn't know about that. Whereas the very religious people tend to wear these very outward signs that show just how religious that they are. I do have a bit of a problem once you get to the level of the niqab and where there's just a little slit for the eyes. Would I ban anybody from doing it? No, I wouldn't. I do agree with what Jack Straw said a few years ago, which is if you're a GP or if you're teaching children, that's maybe not really an appropriate way because you need to have that facial contact. That is part of the normal way that humans communicate with one another, is to have facial contact. I want to be able to see your mouth to see whether I trust what is coming out of your mouth. It is regarded as rude to cover your mouth in conversation and hide your face away as you're talking to somebody. It doesn't become any less rude just because it's a piece of cloth that is covering your mouth. So I respect under normal circumstances people's right to do it, but similarly they have to respect my right to be slightly disconcerted and slightly repelled by it in regard to having a discourse with such people. But that is no different to if they were wearing a motorcycle helmet with the visor down, ladies and gentlemen, or perhaps if they were wearing a deep sea diving helmet, or if they were wearing a suit of armour and pulling the visor down. Okay, I would feel exactly the same, because all of those things dehumanize the person, and it doesn't feel like I'm communicating with a human being anymore. I'm communicating with a kind of amorphous object that's hidden behind some, whether it's a sheet of metal or a sheet of cloth or whatever. That is going to disconcert me, and I think that's a normal human reaction, and I don't feel any guilt for that. But what I wouldn't do is ban people from doing those things. But it's just hard shit if you choose to do those things and people treat you a little bit more standoffish than they would do somebody else. Well, there you go. You know, you made that choice to dress like that. You've just got to accept that people are going to have that little bit of a reaction, because that's quite natural. Now, what about moving in to the bikini thing? You know, what I've got to say to kick this off is that I respect, and I think you'll be well aware of this if you've followed this channel for any length of time, that I respect people's right to believe stupid shit. And the fact that I'm not a religious person, right, and my views are so far away from a religious perspective, means that I have to regard devoutly religious perspectives as stupid shit, because their worldview is so different from my own. I can't fathom how they can reach that kind of a basis in a logical fashion. So but I still respect their right to believe stupid shit, and I respect the right of people to do stupid shit on the back of believing stupid shit, as long as it's them that are suffering as a result of it and not everybody else. And that's kind of getting down to brass tacks with this. Is wearing a bikini appropriate thing to wear on the beach? No, I don't think it is in a million years. But is that a reason to ban it? No, I don't think it is. And let me give you an example, or a couple of examples of things that I've experienced that'll sort of crystallize this. When I was a student at university 22 years ago now, something like that, I was at Southampton and we went down the coast on a boiling hot day on the train, me and a few friends, to Bournemouth Beach. And Bournemouth Beach is one of the best beaches in the UK. It's one of the few beaches got a great expanse of sand, and you get loads and loads of people there on Bournemouth Beach on a really nice day. And we're sat there on Bournemouth Beach, everybody's wearing their swimwear, you know, baking hot in the sun, and then these two black guys come on the beach, hip-hop type of guys, right, with big hats on, big puffy jackets on. They are dressed the kind of thing that you would wear on a winter's day. And the reason that they're wearing all this winterish kind of clothing is because for them, in their culture, that was a cool thing to wear. So they went down the beach wearing all these things because they felt that it would be cool. I have to say, looking at them, they didn't look very cool. They looked like they would be roasting alive in all those clothing. Now, do I think that was an appropriate clothing choice for the beach? No, I think they looked fucking ridiculous wearing that clothing on the beach. Maybe down a club, maybe down a hip-hop club or a nightclub, they might have looked fine, but on a beach it looked fucking stupid as far as I was concerned. But would I ban them from sweating their bollocks off on the beach, wearing a big puffy jacket when the temperatures are in the 30s? No, I wouldn't, because the people who were suffering in those jackets were them. They weren't forcing me to wear a jacket such as that. Forward quite a number of years now to about 7 years ago, I'm on holiday. When I'm on holiday, I like to go down the beach, but on this day I was round the pool, and it was a baking hot day round the pool. It was one of those days where you have to keep going for a dip because it's just so hot. Right, it is just so hot that you just sweat so profusely that you're just boiling there, out there with the sun baking down, and you have to keep going to cool off. and another guest appeared round the pool, right? And it was this Muslim woman wearing a bikini. Well, I assume it was a Muslim woman wearing a bikini because, quite honestly, wearing a bikini is a little bit like being a creationist, right? Because for all the reasons that people will give you as to why creationism's a good thing, nobody is a creationist. Next to nobody is a creationist who isn't a creationist at base for religious reasons. And for whatever reasons people might give you as to why wearing a bikini might be a good thing, nobody wears a bikini unless they're wearing a bikini because of their religious conviction. Nobody in their right mind would wear one. And she was sat there in this bikini, and all I could imagine was that she was sweating to fucking death in this thing. And then she went for a swim in this bikini, and like I say, it's the equivalent of going for a swim in all your clothes. And I have a problem actually with the shorts that a lot of guys wear, because it's quite fashionable for guys to wear these great big fucking baggy beach shorts, and I can't stand them, right? I won't wear the little budgie smuggler speedos, but I wear shorter shorts, and the reason is those big baggy shorts, you go in the sea, you go in the pool, and for the next 2.5 hours they're clammy and clinging and stuck horribly onto your legs, and because there's so much material, all your towel gets dripping wet on your sun lounger, and they're just a right pain in the ass. They're just not comfy, they're clammy and they are uncomfy. How much more clammy and uncomfy must it be to go for a dip in the pool wearing a bikini, and then you come out, you were boiling hot, you couldn't stand it anymore. Probably the only reason she'd gone down the fucking pool in the first place is to see a little child play there. There couldn't have been any enjoyment whatsoever other than that. And then eventually she cracks, she goes for a dip, knowing that for the next 2.5 hours she's going to have this horrible fucking clammy thing that even covers her head's going to be horrible and clammy and wet, and it's going to take 2.5 hours for all that water to boil off. In the meantime, her temperature will be going almost critical with all the water that's evaporating off of her. Right, so what possible pleasure could be involved in that? I can't think of any. And this is the point. Who is suffering here? I wasn't suffering. I almost got a kind of perverse pleasure in thinking how uncomfy it must be having this religion and feeling that you have to wear such a strange garment. So I wouldn't ban these kind of things. If people want to go down the beach and wear a bikini, crack on with it. You crack on with it, because it's the bikini wearer that's suffering, no one else. Just 2 little points to sum up. The first is if I was a French Muslim woman and I felt compelled as part of my religion, I just got to cover my whole body and hair up and everything up when I go on the beach. I'm going to have to wear a bikini. Quite frankly, I'd sooner not fucking bother. So actually, I'd be quite pleased with a bikini ban, because then I could then legitimately say to the rest of my family, bollocks, that's cocked up our beach holiday now. We'd better go somewhere cool because I can't wear my bikini anymore. What a body blow that is to us all, folks. Okay, so I'd be kind of a little bit pleased about it, I think. And the second point, and I leave you with this one, and I say this not to be antagonistic, but this is a genuine question. When you talk about these Muslim couples that are obviously so devout that the wife has to go down wearing this boil in the bag swimwear for the duration of her stay on the beach, is a French beach such as Cannes really an appropriate place for them to be in the first place? And I don't say that with regards to the woman having to wear this boil in the bag swimsuit, but with regards to the devout husband and what he's going to end up seeing and what that's going to do to his brain. After all, one of the reasons that Muslim women wear this, the overriding reason they wear this, is because of the Islamic attitude of the effect that naked female flesh will have on men and the lustful thoughts that it will bring out on them, and the fact that that in turn is a sin, that men just simply won't be able to control themselves, might do the wrong thing, ladies and gentlemen, or at least will have these sinful thoughts. Let me read you a passage from islamic.org.uk on the hijab. The main principal reason for the hijab is modesty, which is not wishing to receive unnecessary attention from people such as admiration and flattery, envy, or most importantly, sexual attraction from those other than the husband. Great care is taken to keep sexual thoughts, feelings and interactions to within the boundaries of the marital relationship. When that devout Muslim husband goes down on the beach, his wife is wearing a bikini, so he isn't going to have any lustful thoughts towards her because she looks like a sack of spuds done up ugly. But there are going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of westernized women wearing tiny little string bikinis, wearing little thongs, going topless. His lustful thoughts are going to be attuned towards all these other women. So I have to ask, is a beach such as this an appropriate place for a devout Muslim couple to go in the first place? Not because of the wife, but because of the impact that it's going to have on the husband. I would have thought these are the kind of places they would not want to tread foot on in a million fucking years. Well, I'd be interested to know what anybody thinks about that. My perspective on the whole thing is that people can wear what the hell they like if the impact is on them and not on everybody else. And that is how I view these garments. If you want to go down the beach in a bikini, if you want to go down the beach in a large puffy jacket and a great big woolly hat, if you want to go down the beach in a suit of armour or wearing a deep sea diving suit or wearing the kind of equipment that Ranulph Fiennes would wear as he was traipsing, man-hauling across to the Antarctic, that's up to you. You crack on and do it, because the only person that's going to be suffering under those garments is you. That's pretty much all that I wanted to say on that. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.